It is indeed a meat-free Monday. We've been looking at the wondrous vegetable that is the squash. I call it a vegetable because I'm not actually entirely sure what family it belongs to. Ben Getz, our tome of knowledge for all things green, who first of all deserves a pat on the back for this garden that feels like it's about to actually envelop us. You brought us through some shining examples. We've been cooking with them. We made a beautiful butternut soup, which I recommend you have a taste. But what is it? What is it? It's a vegetable, obviously,
yes.
but what family does it belong to?
They're winter squash, or we can call them winter squash. They're in the cucurbit family. So they're
Cucurbits.
runners. They're vegetables that take up a lot of space and take up a lot of nutrients from the soil. So those are some things to take into account. But why we call them winter squash is they actually grow in the summer, but when they're fully mature, they get this hardened skin.
Carapace. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why we can eat them in the winter. They're actually not growing in the winter. They're just stored and eaten during the winter. Yeah.
Can you store it like this and then eat it at a much later date? How does
Absolutely.
it work? Yeah.
If you allow it to mature to completion, in other words, the whole plant will actually die back, and all you'll have left is your pumpkin or your butternut or your gem squash, and the skin is hardened. If you store it properly without any sort of
cuts or breaks,
lacerations
okay,
or
yeah.
bruises, it can store right throughout the winter in a dry, darker environment.
Nature's design. Gotta love
Absolutely.
it. Okay, take us through these beautiful specimens here, starting with the king. He's gonna call it the king squash.
You can call it whatever you like, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've got a whole range here. This is a variety of pumpkin, and we've got gem squash and a gourd and butternut, which one of my favorites. I mean, in fact, I made a butternut soup last night. So
Yeah, and it dominates
really,
in winter. South African winters, it's almost a trend
yeah,
to have
a
butternut.
staple, yeah.
If we want to grow them, you say it is a very hungry plant, it
Yes,
draws a lot
very
of moisture.
hungry.
What do we plant it with? Do we plant it with anything? How do we go about preparing this hardy winter squash?
Well, I like the fact that you call it hungry. It's in permaculture, one of the ways in which we categorize different plants is light feeder, medium feeder, heavy feeder. So yes, this is a heavy feeder, which means that the soil needs to be as composted and soil conditioned as possible. You really need to prepare the space for it properly and make sure that it's got space to move. In a smaller garden, because they take so long to mature and they take so much space, it might not be
It's more for
really
a vegetable
viable.
patch as opposed to your beautiful roof garden, which we use almost more for aesthetic value than for anything else. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, the one thing that you can do is a little bit of guerrilla gardening. So if you've got like a beautifully landscaped, sort of normal indigenous garden, you can kind of pop in some of your cucurbit seeds around, and they just have the space. Some of them will take, some of them won't, but it's a nice way to just integrate some vegetables into your normal garden. And then you asked also about companions. What does it grow with?
Yeah.
One of the standard South African, it's traditional, everyone knows it in Transkei around the country, the three sisters. So it's cucurbits, your pumpkins with corn, and climbing beans. Those three go. I mean, there are others, but that's kind of a...
Well, this could be the answer to Africa's food shortage. That's three incredibly hardy and incredibly nutritious. And you have
Absolutely.
to kind of make the connection. If it's drawing a lot of nutrients, that means it must offer a lot of nutrients. These are packed.
Exactly. Absolutely. And then the beans actually help to feed back their legumes, so they're actually taking nitrogen, fixing nitrogen from the atmosphere into the soil. So that obviously all companion planting guilds are designed to work together and help feed off each other in that way.
Awesome. Okay, we've got to sadly leave it there, but we need to do a bit of harvesting here. So I'm going to ask you to harvest a couple of things that we can take back into the kitchen. What are you going to cut up for us today?
Well, firstly, let's take some lettuces. I mean, we've actually got a whole lot of really beautiful looking lettuces here. Just going to give this one a snip and let's have a look at that.
Oh, lovely.
Really beautiful head of lettuce over there. And also a couple of really lovely radishes over here. And I harvested most of them last week. There are a couple more there.
But this is the garden that keeps on giving, man.
Yeah, we've got
delicious.
some baby cabbages and some celery, a whole lot in the garden that we can enjoy.
If people want to get hold of you, where can they pick up the conversation?
Urbanharvest.co.za. Yeah,
He's
thank you.
proudly South African. Ben Getz, thank you so much. We're going to take a very quick break. The show continues. I think we'll be back in the kitchen, maybe cooking up some of these delicious treats. All right, I'm going to try and carry this back inside.